Hello everybody and welcome to the ranch. On today's episode, I'm going to be doing another unboxing. If you've looked at any of my videos, you're probably guessing that this unboxing is going to be a baby tortoise. Well, it's something a little bit different. It is still a reptile, but it is not a tortoise. This is a Cork Bark Leaftail Gecko, Uroplatus pietschmanni. And like all leaftail geckos, this guy comes from Madagascar. If you look at Madagascar, you'll see that it's very unevenly divided into two basic zones. On the east side of the island is rainforest. That butts up against a mountain range. And then on the west side of the island is pretty much scrubland, desert, the spiny forest over there. This particular species comes from the tropical side. They happen to live very high up in the canopy. This comes to me from a breeder. There's only a couple people in this country breeding them right now. He packed it up perfectly. Unfortunately, I live out in the middle of nowhere now, so FedEx isn't guaranteed to get it to me until 10 a.m. So I had it shipped to my nearest hub, drove a half hour down to the main town, picked him up, opened the box, of course, to make sure he was fine, and then got in the vehicle and drove back up here, and right now I'm sharing with you our first look at a Cork Bark Leaftail Gecko. Now, he was shipped to me in this little plastic cup, and the breeder recommends for at least a week or two keeping him in here until he's acclimated and adjusted to this area pretty well. There was a little green leafy thing that's over there I'll put back in here. And so I'm going to do just that. I mean, the guy's been breeding these things. He has experience. But for now, we're going to take him out, and I'm going to show you why it's called a Cork Bark Leaftail Gecko. These guys are typically pretty calm. They can bite. They are a gecko after all. You just want to gently coax them onto your finger, like that. And we'll try to get them to climb over here onto the cork. So you can see, right now he's a little bit dark. These guys have melanophores, which are similar to a chameleon's chromatophores, but instead of being able to change color, they're just able to change their tone and their light and darkness. So what's special about their species? Oh, I don't want to go in there. Nope, stay out of the hole, stay out of the hole, come out and meet everybody. There we go. These guys are a medium-sized species, and if you look, you can see how their skin, instead of being flat, is bumpy. Little knobs and tubulars here and there, which very closely resembles this cork bark. In fact, their feet fan out really far, and they just kind of melt right into the cork bark. Unfortunately, he doesn't have his namesake, the leaftail. Similar to crested geckos, these guys are pretty well known for dropping their tails when they're stressed out. They can come right off. Unlike a crested gecko, this species can grow it back. Of course, it doesn't look as good as the original one, but it still comes back and fans out and looks like a leaf. This is a species of gecko without an eyelid, so from time to time you may see him lick his eyeball. He has a single scale over his eye, like crested geckos. Now, a difference between these guys and crested geckos and cresties and the big Lichianus, these guys are, from what I understand, 95 to 100% carnivores. All they eat is bugs. They don't go after the fruit puddings or the little fruit mushies you can get for your cresties. And of course, when it comes to what kind of bugs, we're talking about dubia roaches, crickets, if you can get them, grasshoppers. And right now, this and the enclosures he'll be living in eventually is teeming with isopods, springtails, and other small little bugs that he can munch on from time to time whenever he finds them, whenever they're out and about. So these guys, just anything smaller enough to get in their mouth, they'll try to eat them. Even though this species, like other leaftail geckos, come from the tropical rainforests, the rainforests that they inhabit aren't very hot and sweltering. I spent some time down in Peru. It was hot down there. These guys actually do much better in lower temperatures. One, I've never been to Madagascar, but I'll guess that based on the care of this species and of this genus, I'll guess that there's a lot more wind blowing through the forest over there, and maybe a little bit more rain. But these guys do really well in the mid to low 70s. That's their optimum temperatures. They don't typically bask. There's not been a lot of research that says, hey, these guys need to bask. So that's kind of nice. So really, these can be kept at room temperature. That's really nice for people that have a lot of reptiles. And anybody that has a lot of reptiles knows that a lot of heat lamps means a lot of money out of your paycheck to pay that electric bill. But luckily, these guys don't need that if you keep your house in the low 70s, which a lot of people do. If you're somebody that likes it really cold, you keep your house down in the 60s, a little frigid there, well, that's kind of on the low end of what these guys feel comfortable with, so you might need a small, very, very low wattage heat lamp. There's also a decent amount of controversy, or not so much controversy, but disagreement as to whether these guys need UVB or not. I provide UVB because at the very least, it can't hurt them. In the wild, they're nocturnal. So people think, well, if they're active at nighttime, they're not seeing a lot of UVB. They're not getting a lot of UVB. But during the daytime, they're perched just like this. They're perched on sticks. They're perched on the side of trees. So they're getting some direct light diffused at them. So while the general consensus is divided on this, I figure I'll give them UVB because why not? If it's not going to hurt them, it can only benefit them. Another very, very, very important need for these guys is not just, low compared to most reptiles temperature, but also you see in the background the misting system's turning on. They need a lot of humidity. 80% or better is what these guys feel comfortable in. If they're not kept moist enough, they can have problems shedding their skin, and that can actually lead to death in this species. I did mention he'll be living in here for a week or two while he acclimates to here. But let's have a look at his enclosure, and I'll tell you a little bit about where he'll be living full time until he gets a little bit larger. This enclosure is an Exoterra 12 by 12 by 18. It's the one designed technically for crested geckos. You can see the purple tree-shaped background. And in here I've got the lower substrate layer for drainage. The substrate that I'm using in here is ABG. And above that, I have sphagnum moss, and above the sphagnum moss, I have living actual sheet moss in here, hoping that'll take off and maybe grow up on some of these things over here. Over here, I have 2 bark panels that are covered in moss, and these are by a relatively new pet company called Galapagos. And they have a lot of really cool products. You're going to see me using them in some of my enclosures in the near future. I'll be doing a build soon, so I'll show you guys that. I got a neat piece of cork holding these apart, but also giving them a little place to traverse. There's a stick here with some moss on it, and plenty of cork, plenty of background, plenty of places for them to hide. A good idea is to take sphagnum moss and stuff it behind these. That does 2 things. One, it keeps them from being able to get back there and potentially getting themselves stuck back there and having to tear the whole cage down to find them and to get them out. It also keeps their prey items from going back there, should they get out of the little cups that you feed them in. And another thing that it does is by having the sphagnum moss here, it's moist, it absorbs the water, and then it gives off humidity. So it helps keep the humidity. You can see in this cage it's 74 degrees right now, and even with the doors open, 86% humidity. This cage is set up great. So mixing and matching, I'm using a ZoomEd UVB LED combo up here. And this has several modes. It has UVB. It has white lights with red plant growing lights on it. And it also has a nighttime mode, which looks pretty cool. The only thing that I'm not sure of, I'm gonna have to do some research, is this is designed to simulate moonlight, which of course some of these guys might see. In fact, this species being a top of the canopy dweller, they are sure they see some moonlight, but I don't know if this is too bright for them, and if it's going to disrupt their natural behaviors or not. I'm going to turn this light out just so that it's not as bright, and I'm going to put him in here. I'll spray it in a little bit, that way he has water droplets to drink off of. I've also got ready a little water bowl I'm going to put in there for him. Naturally, these guys tend to drink fresh water the way a lot of geckos and lizards do. They like to drink it off the sides, drink it off of leaves and whatnot. But they can learn to drink out of a water bowl. So I'm going to leave a water bowl in there, and if he uses it, great. If not, again, just like the UVB, if he doesn't use it or doesn't eat it, it's not going to hurt him. In fact, it can only help with the humidity levels in here. So we'll come back in a week or two once he's acclimated and I've put him in this enclosure, and I'll let you see how he's getting along. The plants in here are already starting to grow very well. This leafy stuff here is a Monte Carlo subspecies, and man, it has taken off. It's greened up, it's climbing up everything, it's creeping the way it should. Unfortunately, my moss isn't growing quite as well as I hoped it would, but that's okay. But in here, of course, we see our little star of the video right here. And he's been eating for me. I've watched him gobble up a couple of crickets. Seen him take one tiny dubia. So he's off to a really good start, and I'm hoping that he'll continue to thrive in this much more spacious cage. I'm just not sure if I'm going to be able to find them all the time. I mean, they have great camouflage to begin with. He's tiny, and there's a lot of places for him to hide. That, of course, should translate into him being extremely comfortable and as content as can be inside this enclosure. Thank you very much for joining me here at the Arctic Reptile Ranch down in Arizona. In future episodes, we'll keep tabs on the little Cork Bark Gecko, who seems to be doing pretty well in his new enclosure. I'll share some details with you about the critters I like to keep that don't have shells. Something that I really enjoy is setting up enclosures like you see in front of you. It's just so awesome to be able to create little miniature worlds that are alive at every level. The soil has little critters living in it. There's larger fauna in here, lizards or frogs or whatever I happen to put into one of these enclosures. The plants are breathing. It's being watered continuously by the misting systems. So it's a tremendous joy for me to do this. It's very relaxing while I build stuff. Even when things go awry, I might have a few colorful metaphors here and there, but overall, it is just something I really enjoy doing quite a bit. And I'll give you a peek into that in some upcoming episodes. Plenty of people have done how to put together a terrarium videos, but I'll show you how I do mine and what my thought process is. It's no better or worse than anybody else's, it's just you might be interested to see how I do it. So I'll give you a chance to have a look how I create one of these living enclosures. Thank you once more for joining me and viewing this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, tell your friends about this channel. If you aren't already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the Arctic Reptile Ranch, and you can go back and look at older videos to find out that Why If I Live in Arizona is my channel called the Arctic Reptile Ranch. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day.